So as we go to air, a heavily edited version of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report on Russian interference in the 2016 US presidential election is being delivered to Congress. But already we have heard from the Attorney General William Barr, a Donald Trump appointee who has responsibility for the investigation, and he has held firm in his interpretation that there was no collusion. Speaking at the Department of Justice in Washington, Barr said, among other things, that President Trump's personal lawyer was allowed to read the censored copy of Mueller's report earlier this week, but that the president did not invoke his executive privilege to keep more of the report secret, even though he had the right to. The Attorney General also said he has no objection to Robert Mueller testifying before Congress about the report, and that in addition to today's edited version, he's going to make a full version, an uncensored copy available to both Republican and Democrat leaders on congressional committees. We're going to talk a lot more about this, but let's start with some of what the Attorney General had to say around 90 minutes ago.
As you will see, the special counsel's report states that his quote, investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. I am sure that all Americans share my concern about the efforts of the Russian government to interfere in our presidential election. As the special counsel report makes clear, the Russian government sought to interfere in our election process. But thanks to the special counsel's thorough investigation, we now know that the Russian operatives who perpetrated these schemes did not have the cooperation of President Trump or the Trump campaign, or the knowing assistance of any other American for that matter. That is something that all Americans can and should be grateful to have confirmed. The report recounts 10 episodes involving the president and discusses potential legal theories for connecting those activities to the elements of an obstruction offense. After carefully reviewing the facts and legal theories outlined in the report, and in consultation with the Office of Legal Counsel and other department lawyers, the Deputy Attorney General and I concluded that the evidence developed by the special counsel is not sufficient to establish that the president committed an obstruction of justice offense.
OK, let's start at the White House. Here's Alan Fisher for us. Alan, I think I saw you actually tweeting earlier saying that it's important to remember we don't have the report yet. And it's on its way to Congress.
Exactly right.
Yeah, it's on its way to Congress. What we do have is what William Barr says about the report. After everything you listened to, what did you learn from it? Anything new?
Well, it's interesting that in all of what Bill Barr said, he didn't mention the fact that 6 aides working with Donald Trump during the election campaign have actually been indicted. A number have served prison sentences. A number are due to serve prison sentences. And that was a direct result of what Robert Mueller did. Now, Donald Trump obviously briefed in advance of what was going to be in the report, undoubtedly clear on what Bill Barr was going to say, because earlier this morning he was directing his Twitter followers to Fox News and One American News, two both considered right-wing news channels, to watch the Bill Barr report. And then immediately afterwards he sent out this tweet. Some people are saying it's Game of Thrones themed, where it says no collusion, no obstruction, and of course he points to the fact that this will be bad news for the haters and the people he is calling the radical democratic left. That is going to be a theme you will hear all the way up to 2020. And then the White House put out its own tweet saying no obstruction, no collusion. It's a message that has been hammered for the last 3 weeks by Donald Trump and his allies, and we know that his legal team, headed by Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York, well, they're putting together a rebuttal document, which is interesting because if the report clears you and that's something you've been saying for the last 3 weeks, why would you need to rebut that? But they're going to do that. It initially was 150 pages long. They decided to start trimming it down over the weekend, and it's down to about 30 pages, we're told, and that will be released after Congress gets their version of the report and we can start reading through it, as many of my colleagues are primed to do as we speak at the moment. There's also been a reaction from Nancy Pelosi. She's, of course, the Democratic Speaker of the House, along with Chuck Schumer, who's the Democratic leader in the Senate. They are saying that they want to see Bill Barr give evidence to their committees at some point in the near future. They also want to talk to Robert Mueller. But Nancy Pelosi in a tweet was perhaps more forceful, saying that Bill Barr was involved in a partisan effort to spin the public view of the Mueller report. So if we were thinking that this was going to draw a line under all of this, if this was the end of the row over whether or not Donald Trump did or did not collude, did or did not obstruct, it isn't going to go away. And probably, I think I'm right in saying this, I don't think this is going to sway voters one way or the other. I don't think at the end of the day, with all the noise, the bluster, with all the repudiation, with all the anger that we're going to hear, with all the cheering we're going to hear, if you believe Donald Trump colluded with Russia or obstructed justice, you're probably still going to believe that. And if you believe the opposite, then Donald Trump is still your man and will probably get your vote in 2020.
OK, that's Alan Fisher at the White House. We're going to head a little further up the road to Capitol Hill. Here is Mike Hanna. Mike, let's build on what Alan was saying there. The report being delivered right now, I believe on discs or CD-ROMs or something like that. It gives the Congressional or Congress people a chance to go through it themselves and their people to go through it themselves. Then what?
Well, what has happened now is that a PDF version of the censored report has been delivered to groups of Congress people here on the Hill. They'll be going through that. The general public will be able to access the report a little bit later on the Department of Justice's website. But the mood here on the Hill, rather angry in terms of reaction to that news conference, or rather speech given by the Attorney General Bill Barr. We heard my colleague Alan Fisher refer to a tweet by the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and perhaps she sums up the reaction of many here in Congress. She said, AG Barr confirmed the staggering partisan effort by the Trump administration to spin the public view of the Mueller report, complete with the acknowledgement that the Trump team received a sneak preview. Now, there has been a formal letter sent to Special Counsel Robert Mueller to come before Congress and to give his view of the report and to explain why he came to certain conclusions, principal among them, as Bill Barr pointed out, that there is no evidence of collusion. But here, Kamal, I must just bring up one very important point in William Barr's statement to the media. He said, and I quote, that we now know that there is no collusion. Now, that coming from the country's top law official is absolutely staggering. What he should be saying is that there is no proof of any collusion. As the country's top law enforcement official, it's something that the Attorney General should be well aware of, and just leads to the mounting criticism that he acted in that news conference more like a defense lawyer for Donald Trump than an impartial head of the Department of Justice, Kamal.
Thank you, Mike Hanna, on Capitol Hill.